Hare Krishna, everybody. This is Krishna Dasa. Welcome you all to today's session of Bhakti Sutra. Today we'll be covering Shlokas 48 to 50, and this should complete the third section of the Bhakti Sutra, 3 out of 5. So before we start, let's say the prayer to Guru. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militamena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah. Chitraji, you wanted to say your shloka? You can go ahead.
Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Thank you, Vinay.
Krishna. Hare
Hare Krishna.
So we'll start with Shloka 48. So you can repeat with me. Ya karma-phalaṁ
या कर्म-फलम्
karma-phalaṁ
tyajati karmāṇi
त्यजति कर्माणि
sannyasti.
सन्न्यस्ति
It's actually sannyasyati.
सन्न्यस्ति
Tato nirdvandvo bhavati.
ततो निर्द्वन्द्वो
bhavati.
भवति.
Excellent. So let's see what Naraji is saying here. He says, those who give up the fruits of their actions and renounce all ego-driven activities rise above the dualities of nature. Is it some kind of a divine coincidence that in the new Bhagavad Gita classes, we just covered Shloka 247, karma-phalaṁ mafaleshu kadachana, and in today's session, we are seeing Naraji saying pretty much the same thing. No, this is divine coincidence. I could not have planned everything so beautifully, but here you can see the continuation. So Krishna said, act without detachment, and then there is a lot of follow-up in the Bhagavad Gita itself, and in the Bhakti Sutra, Naradji is again adding more data points as to the benefits of doing that and why we need to do that. So this is what Krishna said, and Naradji is adding to that. So the first question to answer would be, see, because Krishna is saying, perform, you have a right to perform your prescribed duties. That's what Krishna said in 2.47. But you are not entitled to the fruits. That was the message. So the first question should be, what are my prescribed duties? Because if you don't know what your prescribed duties are, how can you perform your duties without detachment? Now we need to introspect. This is very important for each one of us. This is a very important introspection that we should all do. Sometimes we feel like we don't feel an alignment. We feel like we are working hard, we are doing everything, but somewhere you don't feel like you are aligned. Something seems off. Now, in those circumstances, we usually tend to think what is wrong with the world, what is wrong with the other person. But what is more important is to introspect and think, am I aligned? Do I even know what my duties are? Because once you know your duties, it becomes easier for you to figure out what to prioritize, what not to prioritize, what to emphasize, what not to emphasize. And here is one of the areas where you should utilize the guidance of a guru, as well as other elders. If you have any elders around you, any wise people, definitely seek their guidance. But this is one of the most important aspects that you should consult with the guru and make sure you are aligned. Krishna has given another tip in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has said that in general, our duties, they need to be aligned with our inner nature. So Krishna, his teachings, as always, they are so divine. It's beyond any comparison, because he is talking about if we do our duties, then we become aligned. But he also says our duties should be aligned with our own inner nature. So it's a continuous alignment that he is talking about. You remember in Bhagavad Gita, we spoke about the inner nature and how we cannot try to go against the inner nature. Right? For example, somebody is a, let us say somebody is a priest by choice, because that's what their inner nature is. They feel like being in a temple, being very pious, being very non-violent and kind and compassionate. Now just imagine forcing that person, give a gun in his hand, force that person to go to the battlefield and fight. It's just not aligned. No matter how much you try to force that person cannot do a good job as a soldier, because that's not in their aligned with their inner nature. So in Bhagavad Gita, for example, Sri Krishna knows the inner nature of Arjuna is that of a warrior. That is his inner nature. So his prescribed duties included fighting for the protection of Dharma. That is why he's instructing Arjuna, go fight the war. See, Krishna does not ask Vidura to go fight the war. Why? Vidura also listens to Krishna. Vidura was also in Krishna's company. Krishna never said, Vidura, why are you sitting in the palace? Go fight. Because that is not Vidura's inner nature. So that is not his prescribed duty. Vidura's nature was more of a statesman. That was his inner nature. That is why Krishna said, you sit with Dhritarashtra. That's your job. And counsel the king and explain the happenings to the king. That was his duty. And he was supposed to do that job. So Arjuna should not try to become a Dhritarashtra's counsel, and Vidura should not try to become a warrior in the battlefield. Then there is no alignment. So our prescribed duties will also depend on what stage of life we are in. So your inner nature plus what stage in your life you are in. If you are young, your primary duties would probably be something like studying. Maybe studying is one of your primary duties when you are young, because that's the duty of every student. And you have to be performing that. When you're a little bit older, maybe your duty will include now taking care of your spouse. You become a little more older, then you take care of your kids, you take care of the society. Whatever the stage of your life will determine what additional duties come your way. So once we understand what our duties are, then how to perform your duties with a sense of detachment. See, these are two parts. One part, Krishna says, when Krishna says perform your duties without attachment, there are two parts to it. First, understand what my duties are. Only then performing comes into picture, right? Okay, now I have figured out how to understand what my duties are. Then how do you perform your duties without attachment? So Krishna has given that also in the Bhagavad Gita. Very beautiful shloka. He is given that in chapter 9, shloka 27. Beautiful shloka. It says, Yat karoshi, yat ashnasi, yat juhoshi, dadasi, yat tapasyasi, kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give away, whatever austerities you perform, O son of Kunti, do all of that as an offering to me. It's so effective, so simple, so beautiful. Know what your duties are and then perform them and offer the results to me. Say, I'm doing it for you, Krishna. For example, if your job, like, okay, my job, let us say, I think my job is to teach. Now, how do I do that without attachment? How do I do that with detachment, without expecting anything? Is my mindset should be, I am teaching for Krishna, because my job is to bring people closer to Krishna. So it's all for Krishna. If I can be in that mindset, then I'm not going to get overly attached or disturbed based on how my students are reacting, how they are responding. See what I mean? Just like that, Krishna is saying, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever austerities you perform, take it to the next level. Let everything be an act of sacrifice to Krishna. So much so that 2 classes earlier, we also discussed, this is one of the ways to even get rid of your vikaras. Does anyone remember what we discussed in regards to vikaras? in the headphone, there is a noise cancelling feature. Just like that, the way to cancel noise in a classroom is when teacher asks a question. Suddenly, all the students become very quiet. Yeah, I think Sulataji had something to say.
I'm just trying to remember when we, as you said, when we do duties for aligning, like for Krishna, for pleasing Krishna. Now, suppose you face a situation, confront a situation which annoys you. So, or you will be viewing it as a third person observer, and then you can you in the normal situation by default you react to the situation, but here when you do this you respond, you think, and then you can control your anger, or you can just introspect within, and then you can respond to the situation, controlling your anger or whatever it is, vikara.
Correct. Very good. Very good. And we also discussed that if you have any negative qualities, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, whatever vikara you have, you can sacrifice those vikaras also to God. Because all those vikaras make you feel good. See, doesn't matter how great we think we are, doesn't matter how pious and how devoted we are all human beings. It's extremely hard for us to do anything without a selfish motive. If it is not consciously selfish, it will be unconsciously, subconsciously selfish. For example, even praying to God. If you ask a devotee, why do you pray to God? Deep inside, the answer will be, it makes me feel happy. So there is a selfish intent there also. Correct? So that applies to our vikaras. Why do we get angry? Because somewhere getting angry makes us feel good. It makes us feel in control. It makes us feel powerful. Why are we greedy? Because it makes us feel good. We feel good when we get more and more and more and more. More and more is coming in. It keeps making that happiness doesn't last. That's a different story. But you are doing it because even momentarily it makes you feel good. So that happiness, sacrifice to God. So that is the way you can sacrifice your vikaras also to God. If you have any negative qualities, this is how you sacrifice to God. You have to first think, why do I have that quality? Then the answer will be, somewhere that quality is making you feel good. Then that goodness I sacrifice to God. Once that is gone, then there is no incentive for that vikara. So that is how you sacrifice a vikara to God. Another technical term, so vairagya, we discussed that earlier. Detachment, developing detachment. So vairagya helps us perform actions without expectations. And this helps, see, it's a beautiful connection. Vairagya will help us perform our duties without attachment and without expectations. And that will help us achieve samatvam. So use vairagya to do what Krishna is saying, that will help develop samatvam. And samatvam is a prerequisite for achieving liberation. This is how Krishna has explained the whole thing to us. Everything ties in beautifully with each other. So one of the best examples of leading a life of detachment, that is of Lord Rama. One of the best examples. He led by example on how to perform duties without attachment to outcomes. I mean, Rama was the ideal king. He was the ideal son, an ideal brother. And he has always prioritized dharma over his own comfort or his own desires. Like even when he was about to be crowned king of Ayodhya, you know what happened? His stepmother came and said, I want Rama going to exile in forest for 14 years. So it has to be my son Bharata who has to be king. But why? Because somewhere the king had given a word. I don't know if you know the story, but the story is, once the king was in the battlefield and Kaikeyi helped him when he was wounded, and so he was very emotional. And in that emotional state of mind, he made a promise. He said, you can ask any two boons. And Kaikeyi waited for the right time, and of course she had again kusanga. The story is basically Kaikeyi had a maid, and it was her maid's kusanga that made Kaikeyi think in these negative ways. And then Kaikeyi utilized those two boons. He said, first boon, Rama has to go to exile. Second boon, Bharata has to become the king. But everybody loved Rama. Rama was in a powerful situation. The praja, the population loved Rama. Rama could have easily said nonsense. I'm not giving up the throne. And the throne would have been his because people wanted him to be the king anyways. But he gracefully accepted it. Why? Because he wanted to help his father keep his word. Rama is all about Satya, just like Krishna is all about Dharma. Rama wanted to establish Satya, truth, and the importance of keeping your word was crucial. The theme was like that. So he led by example, and he didn't care. He was the rightful heir. He should have been the king, but he didn't have attachment. He just performed his duties. Whenever he had to perform the duty as a king, he performed as a king. As a husband, he performed as a husband. When he had to perform the duty as a son, he performed the duty as a son. His duty as a son was to help his father keep his word. So he didn't care about the outcome. Oh, if I listen to my father, if I help my father keep his word, then I will lose my kingdom. That didn't matter to him. This is one of the best examples, and this is one of the key takeaways from that story of Lord Rama. Lord Rama's life was an example of continuous vairagya. So with that, let us go to Shloka 49. Yo vedān-api
You vedān-api
sannyasyati kevalam
sannyasyati
kevalam-avicchinnānurāgaṁ
aviccchinna-anurāgam
aviccchinna-anurāgaṁ
labhate.
labhate.
Let us see what Naradji is saying here. He who abandons even the Vedas and develops an undivided and continuous flow of love towards the Lord. Aviccinna-anurāgam. That means an uninterrupted and continuous flow of love towards the divine or supreme being. What is the theme again? Consistency. Ananya-chintan. See, these great sages and Jagat Gurus, this is what I was telling. So in my previous Bhagavad Gita session, one student was a little agitated. And the student was like, Krishna is contradicting himself. So I had to lovingly tell that person that there is absolutely no contradiction. We just have to give some time because our understanding is not yet complete. So, like for example, we can read like random parts of a textbook, even a modern scientific textbook. For example, there is one part of the textbook that says water gives life. And then we randomly go to some section, we are in a hurry. So we just flap the pages. We go somewhere in the middle of the textbook where we read a statement that says water can kill you. And you are like, oh, this author is contradicting himself. But the context was so different. In the first, it says water is important for life. You have to drink sufficient amount of water. You have to stay hydrated. It is important for life. That was the context. The second part, the context was, if you jump into the water without knowing swimming, you will drown and that water can kill you. But I have not looked at the context. I picked two lines out of context and said, here it says water gives life, here it says water can take life, so the author is contradicting himself. That's what happens even with Krishna's teachings. You have to give it time. You have to go with it. You have to take everything in context. Then everything will make sense. Just like that, Ananya-chintan, they have been pretty consistent about it. Consistency is very consistent. The message is repeated. So we have to understand that it is one of the most important aspects of bhakti. Because Naradji says that when you are in this kind of aviccinna-anurāgam, that state, it purifies the mind and it helps dissolve the ego. It's like sulfuric acid. It dissolves the ego. Very, very important. Because only when the ego is gone can you be liberated. How can you get liberated as long as you carry the baggage of ego? Ego will not let you make progress on the spiritual path. Ego will not let you get liberated. Ego is like that Fevicol. It is binding you to Maya. It is binding you to material world. So you are trying to run away, but then you are not realizing that that Fevicol is very strong. You have to first dissolve it. Only then you can escape. And to dissolve that, you have to be in aviccinna-anurāgam. Ananya chintan. There are different terms used. But that is what is that solution that can dissolve your ego and help you get liberated. Very important. And then Naradji says, for a person who is in such aviccinna-anurāgam, there is no need for anything else. Beautiful. No need for anything else, including the Vedas. Before we dive deeper into this shloka, we have to remember that both Naradji as well as Krishna has said we should not be attached to Vedas. I want to clarify before it becomes confusing, because this is also another often term quoted out of context. They are all talking about the ritualistic aspects of the Vedas, which are known as karma-khanda. The Vedas have been logically divided into three parts, or they call them three khandas. Khandas. The first is the karma-khanda, which is, they associate that to the feet of a person. And the second is upasana khanda, which they associate with the heart of a person. And the third is the jnana khanda, which is associated with the head of a person. Anyways, they are all talking mostly primarily about the karma khanda, because karma khanda is the ritualistic aspect, which is all about, if I do this, I get that. If I do that, I get this. And Krishna is saying that is what we need to get out of this mindset of performing something with some expectation. This is why Lord Krishna has said in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, what has he said? He has said, for a wise Brahmana who has realized the self, the Vedas are as useful as a reservoir of water in a place flooded by water everywhere. We discussed that in Bhagavad Gita. So assume there is a flood everywhere, then what use is a tank of water? See, a tank of water is helpful if there is drought everywhere. If there is no water anywhere else, then the tank of water is helpful. But if there is flood everywhere, then what is the use of that water tank? So this aviccinna-anurāgam, ananya chintan, self-realization, that's like a flood. So Krishna says, when that flood is there, the karma khanda is like a tank of water. Then what is the need for that tank of water? However, reaching this stage is very difficult. So we should not immediately say, oh, Krishna has said, I don't need anything, so I'm throwing away all the scriptures. Because that applies to somebody who is already in ananya chintan, aviccinna-anurāgam, that state. But that state is not easy. It's extremely rare to find somebody who has reached that stage. Extremely rare. Especially in Kali Yuga, it is extremely rare to find anybody who is reached that stage. Now, Naradji has specified 12 requirements that can help the seeker reach such a stage. And this is also throughout the Bhakti Sutra. Let us see what let us see all the 12 requirements. As I have gathered from the Bhakti Sutra, I had to go through multiple shlokas for this. The first is Adau Shraddha. What is Adau Shraddha? Faith in the existence of God and the efficacy of devotion. That is Shraddha. Now, Sri Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam tatparah sanyatendriyah jnanam labdva param shanti achirena adhigacchati. Those with unwavering faith and those who have practiced controlling their mind and senses, they attain divine knowledge. And through such divine knowledge, they quickly attain everlasting supreme peace. That is the recipe given. If something doesn't make sense, feel free to raise your hands. We can discuss, or we can also ask questions at the end. The second, sadhu sangha or sat sangha. See again, sat sangha, the concept is coming here again. Because association with holy saints and sadhus, it has been reiterated many times by Saint Narada, and other saints have also said the same thing. We also have this beautiful shloka in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11. It says, Paraspar anukhatanam pavanam bhagavat yashah mito ratir mitas tushtir nivruttir mita atmanah. To foster spiritual growth, it is crucial to engage with fellow devotees by participating in gatherings that celebrate and honor the Lord's glories. Now, this practice has a purifying effect on all involved. As devotees cultivate strong bonds of friendship, they experience shared happiness and contentment. By supporting and inspiring one another, they can successfully relinquish material attachments, which are the root of all suffering. So nicely explained, the Srimad Bhagavatam explains the actual purpose and use of a satsanga. And that is precisely what I've been requesting all of you to do in this satsanga. It's like, it's not a, that is one of the reasons I'm kind of discouraging forwards, because forwards is just a brain dead activity. I see something, click, 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 forward, forward, forward. That's not the point. This is not a club. It's a satsanga. The purpose is we should all be coming together, supporting each other, develop, because it's very powerful. If you use it the right way, it's very powerful. Satsanga doesn't have to be thousands of people. Even 10 people can be a strong satsanga. If everybody has the same intent, they all have the same mindset, they are all coming together, they are discussing about God, they are praising God, they're asking questions about God. So let us do as much of that as possible, because everybody, including Naradji and Krishna, have said that this has a very purifying effect. You have to believe it. You have to believe in the process. You cannot always think ki maishana. You have to believe the process, trust, and follow it. The results will come when it has to come. Third is bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya is practice of devotion with body, mind, and senses. Bhajan is also part of satsanga activity. We can do that. Fourth is anartha nivritti, which means removal of unwanted and distracting thoughts and desires. You know, we already have such less time. We already find it so hard to focus our mind. And now we have so many distractions. So we need to get rid of as many distractions as possible. So do you know, for example, when we came to Vancouver, Kalpanaji had a rule for our house. Kalpanaji suddenly alert. I'm talking about her. Kalpanaji said, no TV in the house. Initially, it was a shock because a TV was like, how can we not have a TV, right? Because it's been like a family member. But her observation was very right. Her observation was, when we had the big screen back in Pune, we are all sitting together, but we are not with each other. We are all glued to that big screen. You know, there is no real communication going on. We have quantity of time, we don't have quality of time. And also, it's a big distraction. Every time there is some free time, we want to go sit in front of the dumb box, idiot box, and absorb any nonsense that comes from there. So it was difficult for us initially to comply with that. And my kids especially, they tried to work around the system. So they were like, if Mama doesn't allow us to use a TV. So it was difficult. So they worked around the system. They will sit with their tabs and phones then. They will watch TV shows and tabs and phones. So it was a painful process for us to gradually get the message across and get them to remove these kind of distractions, unwanted distractions in their life. But after 2 or 3 years, even my kids, they acknowledged that this decision has helped make the house more peaceful. The environment became more peaceful. And I also tell her that was the best decision that she took. And we all complied, and it's benefiting us. And whenever we sit together, we try to actually have conversations now. There is no idiot box. What I'm trying to tell you is sometimes you need to get rid of some distractions also. There are many distractions in our life. To make our journey smoother and easier, we also have to try and get rid of some distractions. And that is what Naradji is saying here. Unwanted distractions. And Sri Krishna has emphasized in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, Raga Dvesha Viyuktaya Tu Vishayan Indriye Charan Atma Vashyaya Videyatma Prasadam Adhigacchati. One who is free from attachment and aversion and moves among sense objects with the sense under control attains the grace of God. So you can be in the world, but you are not impacted by the world. You can be near sense objects, but you are still having your senses under control. Then Krishna says, such a person attains the grace of God. It's not easy. So we have to practice first. See, it is like somebody says, if you can beat this Khadi Pailwan, if you can beat that Pailwan, then you will get God's grace. And then everybody is going, okay, I'm going to try and beat that Pailwan. What is going to happen? You're going to get beaten up. Because none of us have any expertise in fighting a Pailwan. What do we need to do? First, we need to build strength. We need to develop strength. How do you develop strength? By first doing what is good, and second, avoiding what is bad. Avoiding unhealthy things and developing healthy practices. Get up in the morning, do exercise, do push-ups, whatever you want to do. Correct? That builds strength. And once you are strong, then go fight the Pailwan. So Krishna is talking about controlling the senses. That is like fighting the Pailwan. And everybody says, yeah, from tomorrow I'm going to control the senses. But how? Do you have the strength to do that? So how do you get that strength? So Naradji is saying one of the things you need to do is try and avoid distractions. Eliminate distractions from your life. Find out what are the things that are constantly distracting you, forcefully distracting you, and try to get rid of them. And that is one of the ways we can build strength. Okay. And then number 5 is ruchi, which is taste for devotion. Number 6 is bhava, which is the actual feeling of devotion. Then 7 is prema, which is intense love for God. And 8 is nishta. Nishta is steady devotion and determination, steadiness, consistency. It's kind of loyalty to God, focused and consistent devotion. Srimad Bhagavatam has 2 very beautiful shlokas. One of them says, Savai pusam paro dharmo yato bhaktihi adokshaje ahetuki apratihata yaya atma suprasidati. Which means the supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which one can attain loving devotional service to the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated, uninterrupted to completely satisfy the Atman. And then the Srimad Bhagavatam goes on to say, Tasmat ekena manasa bhagavan satvatam prati shrotavya kirtitavya cha dhyayah pujyah cha nityada. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead, who is the protector of the devotees. Number 9 is asakti. Asakti is attachment to God and detachment from material desire. Now, Krishna has spoken about asakti also in Bhagavad Gita. That comes in chapter 3. That verse, Shloka 19 of chapter 3, has the word asakti in it. So you can read it. It says, Tasmad asaktah satatam karyam karma samachara asakto hi acharan karma param apnoti purushah. Therefore, giving up attachment, perform actions as a matter of duty, because by working without being attached to the fruits, one attains the supreme. You see the recurrence of that theme again and again. Number 10 is pragya. Pragya means divine wisdom. Now, Krishna has taught us how to remain established in divine wisdom. That is where in chapter 2, Krishna had said, when a person is able to withdraw their senses from the sense objects, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into the shell, then they are established in divine wisdom. That divine wisdom is what is pragya. And number 11, Kriya Yoga. Narad is calling out Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga basically means service to the Guru and God with body, mind, and senses. Now, the great sage Patanjali has also provided a definition for Kriya Yoga in the Yoga Sutras. He says, Tapaha swadhyaya ishvara pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga consists of discipline, which is tapas, self-study, which is swadhyaya, and surrender to God, which is ishvara pranidhana. Then number 12 is divya anubhava. Divya anubhava is direct experience of the divine. And Krishna has explained the symptoms of somebody who has direct experience of divine. Not sure if you remember the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna said one of the symptoms of somebody who has got this kind of divine experience is, this is the kind of yogi whose consciousness is united with God. Such a person, samadarshena, he is able to see everybody with equal eyes. He can see all living beings in God, and he can see God in all living beings. So this means you are in the state of divyanubhuti. You have a direct experience of God. Theoretical knowledge of God is one thing, but when you have the direct experience of God, then you have this samadarshana, which is like you have that vision of equality, oneness. It is not a intellectual, everybody is same. It is actually the realization. When you see a dog, you can feel God's presence there. You see a horse, you see any other person, you can feel the presence of God. If that happens, then you are having a direct experience of God. Again, the key point that we should remember is all the Vedas, all the scriptures, their job is to take us to this stage. Once we reach the stage, then we don't remain attached to the tools that got us there. That is the message of Krishna. That is the message of Naradji also. And that is what Sri Krishna said in the concluding verse of Bhagavad Gita. Very powerful verse. This verse is also often quoted by Lord of Swamijis and saints. Sarva dharman paritrajya mamam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shuchah. Surrender to me alone, abandoning all forms of dharma. I will liberate you from all sinful reactions. There is no need to be afraid. That's kind of an assurance given towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita. Now let's go to the last sloka, sloka 50 for today. Satarati, satarati.
Satarati, satarati. Salokha.
Salokans
Shlokas.
tarayati.
Arayati.
Dharayati.
See, sometimes you can see that I hesitate. Usually when there is a big Sanskrit word, In Sanskrit, the grammar is very important. So there may be a big word, and you should know exactly how to break it when you are saying. Like Lakshmiji is here. Yeah, Lakshmiji. In Tamil, there is a very popular slang. They say, chukumi lagadi ipali.
Yeah. Chukku milagati. That is the word.
It means if you it is actually the word is shukka milagat ipili, but you are mixing it up. You are saying chukumi lagadi ipili. That is senseless. That is meaningless because you didn't know how to break the three words. Just like that in Sanskrit, when you have a bigger word and if you have to break it up while saying, I hesitate because I want to make sure I'm not breaking it the wrong way. And so that causes some hesitation because it may change the meaning or it may become meaningless also. So bear with me. So what this Shloka number 50 says is, he crosses over this ocean of Maya. He crosses over. And he also helps others in the world cross this ocean of Maya. So Naraji is concluding this section of the Bhakti Sutra by saying that such a person, which person? The person who has been following the process and all the requirements that he has been talking about, will not only cross Maya, the ocean of Maya, but will also help others cross the ocean of Maya. Now, Swami Mukundananda, he says that there are two types of saints. One is Bhajananandis, and the other, he says, they are Sevanandis. So basically, both are experiencing bliss of self-realization, but Bhajananandis, they keep it to themselves. They are very busy in their own bliss, and they may be doing bhajans and kirtans, but they are in their own world. They are enjoying that bliss. However, the Sevanandis, they are eager to help others. They want others to experience that bliss. And they spend a lot of time to bring others on the path and help them succeed. So, Naraji is talking about those Sevanandis here. He's saying a person who has followed the process, who has got this Siddha Bhakti, this person will cross Maya and this person will also help others cross Maya. There are many stories from the scriptures about individuals who crossed over and also helped others cross. In my opinion, one of the most popular stories is that of Adi Shankaracharya, one of the most prominent saints and sages of greatest scholars of India. I mean, he was such a strong proponent of Advaita philosophy. So he established, I don't know, some of you may know about Shankaracharya already, but he established major monasteries, they call mathas. So he established at least 4 major ones. One is the Sringeri Peetham, which is located in Karnataka. One is Dwaraka Sharada Peetham, which is in Gujarat. One is Govardhana Matha, which is in Puri. And one is Jyotirmat or Joshirmat. It is in Uttarakhand, North India. All mostly dedicated to Lord Badrinath, Vishnu, Saraswati. And all these mathas are also known as Amnaya mathas, or they are still considered important learning centers. What he did so many hundreds of years ago, they are still considered as very important learning centers. So he was a very great Sevanandi. He not only managed to cross the ocean of Maya, but he did so much service and he helped so many others cross this ocean of Maya. So according to the legend, when Shankaracharya was a young boy, from a very young age, he had this desire to be a sannyasi. And of course, his mother was pretty reluctant. She's like, you are my son, you are my boy. What do you mean you want to be a sannyasi? But he had such strong desire. And he was a scholar right from childhood. So he was such a scholar that he could talk his mother into getting convinced that that was the right path for him. And then the story says Adi Shankaracharya went out on a long journey to find a guru. See, even Shankaracharya felt he needed a guru. Adi Shankaracharya. And then he found a guru. His name was Govinda Bhagavat Pada, and he initiated Shankaracharya and instructed him. And then it is said that Guru told Shankaracharya that don't just aim for your own liberation, you should also spread the knowledge and help others. So that is the story basically. And of course, Shankaracharya has written very strong commentaries on Vedanta. He wrote commentaries on Bhagavad. Do you know that Shankaracharya probably gets the credit for rediscovering the Bhagavad Gita? He is the one, because it was otherwise kind of a small part of the Mahabharata. It was Shankaracharya who said there is a gem hidden in the Mahabharata. So he extracted that Bhagavad Gita, publicized it. And that is where the common people started, noticing and learning the Bhagavad Gita. So I would say Shankaracharya gets a lot of credit for bringing the Bhagavad Gita to common people. And also he has very great works like Viveka Chudamani. We have spoken about that, correct? Viveka Chudamani. Matanga, Patanga, Bringamina, that story of 5 senses, 5 animals. That's also Shankaracharya's work. So, Shankaracharya, he crossed over the ocean of Maya and he attained an enlightenment at a very young age. And then he spent the rest of his life helping others do the same. So, in this section of the Bhakti Sutra, Naradji concludes by saying that just like Shankaracharya, a person who follows his prescribed process and meets all the requirements, he will go on to become a Sevanandi. There is no if. It has to happen. And what that means is such a person will not only get liberation, but they will also prove to be a huge force that helps others reach the path. So with that, we conclude the third section of the Bhakti Sutra by the grace of Sri Krishna and by the kind support of all my dear Satsanga members. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. With that, I'll stop the recording, open the floor